Daredevil is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, and I recently rewatched the show just before season one of Born Again came out, and during that rewatch, I honestly started to feel like the Netflix Daredevil show was my favorite television show of all time. I absolutely adore that show. I think all three seasons are perfect. I know people don't love season two, but I think all three seasons are pretty on par and pretty perfect, with season three being probably my favorite television season of all time. I think it's just absolutely phenomenal. I think Charlie Cox's depiction of the character is one of the most interesting Marvel characters out there. Like his constant struggle with his faith and with his depression and with all of his flaws and everything make him a really genuinely fascinating character. And in season three of the original show, we have him dealing with things like suicide and stuff like that, and wanting to kill himself and wanting to die in the fight for Fisk. And it's a real sort of thing, and Matt Murdock deals with real struggles that we don't usually see a lot of Marvel characters get to deal with in the movies and in the other Disney Plus shows. So I was always really excited going into Born Again to see what they would do with this. And Born Again season one was plagued with behind the scenes issues. Like there were reshoots, rewrites, constant just stuff what they were fixing. John Bernthal quit the show at one point because he didn't love what they were doing in Frank, and then he rejoined and stuff like that. And you can tell when you're watching season one that it is a messy, messy season of TV. And we knew a lot of this. We knew how messy it was before season one even came out. But I went into it kind of optimistic, just excited to see these characters again and hoping that it would still be as good as we wanted it to be and be as perfect as the original show was, as hard as that'll be to live up to. And unfortunately, season one, at least for me, did not live up to that. You can check out my videos on the channel that I made on season one. I made videos on pretty much the entire season. And kind of throughout all of it, I was like, it's great seeing these characters again, but there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of things that the show is doing wrong. There's a lot of writing problems the show is falling into. It was in this weird area where it didn't really want to recognize the canon of the original show, so it was pretending like the events of the original show still somewhat happened, but that they were different in ways so that they could kind of do whatever they want with the characters. It was just a mess. And we kind of knew going into season two that it was going to be a bit of a different show, that they didn't have to deal with a lot of the old footage anymore, that they were kind of free now to do a lot of their stuff. But I was still a little bit cautious going into season two because I felt like there's a lot of issues with season one that can't be just fixed by going straight into season two. Like there's going to have to be a lot of fundamental issues they address. And honestly, I felt like they addressed a lot of those issues in season two really well. Like they were finally able to consider the Netflix show fully canon. They didn't have to worry about, whether they were half canon or half not. They could just do full blown references. They could introduce characters from the Netflix era. They didn't have to pretend that they were something that they weren't. And then the reviews for season two started coming out, and a lot of the reviews were saying things like, this is the best that Daredevil has ever been. Like it's on par with the Netflix show. It's that good. To be honest, I don't think it's on par with the Netflix show just yet, but season two of Born Again would be just under the first three seasons of the Netflix show, with season one being a much bigger drop down. So I think they fixed a lot of their issues in this season that season one just couldn't do. And season two's over now, and my general feeling is that it was a colossal upgrade from season one. Everything was better, everything was more sure of itself, the characters were better, the ties to the Netflix show were more blatant, like they weren't just small vague references anymore. Episode 5 of this season was basically a Netflix episode. Like it was so cool to see them finally embrace all of this stuff and not be running from it. And the ending for season 2 had me far more excited for season 3 than the ending for season 1 had for season 2. Like at the end of season 1 I was like, yeah, it's exciting. I'm intrigued to see what they do, but I'm not super excited after seeing what they did this season. But the end of season 2 I was like, bring on season 3. I think all the pieces are now in place for him to make a terrific season 3 and have it be even better than season 2 was. Now, I know a lot of the Born Again diehard fans are kind of in the mindset of, please stop mentioning the Netflix show. There are two different shows. You don't need to keep mentioning the old show like it's a new iteration. And I agree that you don't need to mention it, but the old show isn't just a pretty good show. It's one of the most perfect things to ever come out of the superhero genre, in my opinion. And it's impossible not want to compare that to when there's a revival of that same thing. And even after season 2, I don't think Born Again is as good as the Netflix show, like I said, but I think with season 3, it could get up there. Like it could get on that tier if they keep on this quality track of like like an upward trajectory, because I thought season 2 just got better the longer it went on. Like the finale of season 2 I thought was the best episode of season 2, with the first episode of season 2 probably being the weakest. But even talking about the characters left over from season 1, like Cherry, Krysten, Heather, all these characters that I think they were much better in this season than in season 1. Like they were better written, they were more compelling. In season 1, these characters where when they were on screen, I'd kind of be checking my watch, waiting until we could get back to the Matt Murdock stuff. But in season 2, I was still really into them as much as I was with the Matt Murdock stuff and those other characters. Their storylines were compelling in a way that they just weren't in season 1. Matt this season probably had less to do than he did in season 1. In season 1, I unfortunately felt like his arc and story wasn't great, but I thought that in season 2 it was much more enjoyable. I loved how he was back being Daredevil, and you could see how that was kind of helping his mental health in a lot of ways, where he wasn't in the kind of same circumstances he was in season 2. You can see how much he kind of needs his vigilante side of him for him to be happy. And then Wilson Bethel's Bullseye was the highlight of the season for me. He is such a fantastic version of the character. And honestly, what they're doing for John Bernthal's Punisher at the moment, where he got his own special and he's going to show up in Brand New Day in 2 months, I actually would love to see that for Wilson Bethel's Bullseye. I would love to see him in a Spider-Man film. I would love to see him getting his own special. I know there's a lot of chatter out there that maybe he joins the Thunderbolts if they do a second Thunderbolts film, and I would love to see that. Matthew Lillaird is Mr. Charles. We didn't get a whole lot of his character, and it felt like his stuff here was kind of a pretty clear setup for season 3 of Born Again, to set him up in kind of a more antagonistic, bigger role in a lot of ways. But I thought he was a delight in every scene that he was in here. Like, and maybe it's just Lillard's acting because he's great, but I enjoyed the hell out of him here every time he was on screen, and he did feel like kind of a wild card where you weren't entirely sure what he was going to do or how he was going to act from scene to scene. The season also saw the return of Krysten Ritter as Jessica Jones, and it's been 7 years since we last saw her in season 3 of her own show, and it was obviously very enjoyable to see her return, but I felt like there wasn't a whole lot for her to do here. It felt like her appearance here was kind of, it wasn't a cameo obviously, but it felt kind of doing the same purpose as a cameo, where she's mostly being pushed here to set up for season 3 so that they don't have to introduce all the defenders in season 3. I know we got Mike Coulter's Luke Cage in the finale very briefly, but you're still going to have to properly introduce him and Danny Rand next season. In fact, they didn't want to have to do that for Jessica as well, so they're bringing her in a bit early here. And I think it makes sense to do that, to introduce her first, as she was the second Netflix Defender introduced. But I do feel like her character, there wasn't a lot for her to do here. You could kind of know, you could kind of tell that it was kind of just sort of a setup thing. Vincent D'Onofrio's Fisk, look, I'm always excited to see more of that character. I think his acting is always great. I think he's always fun to watch. I loved watching him this season, but I do think we're kind of past his time as being sort of Daredevil's only real proper villain. I don't think we really need much more of him. I think we kind of need to be moving past his character and onto other villains and onto other characters. And he's still, despite being defeated this season, going to be a big part of the show next season. That's probably the one thing about season 3 I'm not overly excited about, because as great as Fisk is, I think a lot of it, this is the same with a lot of villains. You don't want to overuse a villain. You want it to be exciting when they return to fight the hero again. And I don't necessarily think we're giving ourselves a break from Fisk, and I think we kind of need a break from Fisk. You know, I think leave him out of the MCU for 4 to 5 years, then you can bring him back in a future season of Born Again, or even bring him back in Spider-Man 5. Then you have Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock in Spider-Man 5, and you have that sort of go head to head. I think that would be way more exciting than having him have to have a role in every season of Born Again. The action this season was also much, much better than anything we saw in season 1. The action in season 1 felt very stilted, felt very CGI heavy. Like, it didn't feel like the Daredevil we knew and loved from the original Netflix show. But that definitely changed this season. We had that huge long shot in episode 3 during the prison escape scene, where like Tony Dalton's character, Swordsman, was getting tired during the fight and stuff like that. And that was something that the Netflix era of the show handled really well, where you would see characters getting tired during fights, because it was kind of just that emphasis that these aren't, you know, the Avengers from the MCU. These are generally realistic people. Like, yeah, obviously they have superpowers, but they're still realistic depictions of the characters, and they get tired during these fight scenes and stuff like that. So I loved seeing that return to the prison fight scene. And then we saw Matt just be awesome, and that suit this season is probably the best Daredevil suit we've had on screen ever, I would say. Buck and Daniel were great this season. I am really enjoyed their dynamic and how they ended their storyline this season. I know that they said on the podcast that the ending with Buck killing Daniel was actually something that they did in the edit and wasn't what they were planning for the season, that they were originally going to make him live. But I'm really happy that they went with the less safe option of actually killing him. I thought that that was a dark thing to do and something that the Netflix Daredevil would do. Like Born Again season 1 would have let Daniel live, but Netflix Daredevil would have killed Daniel. So I thought that them deciding to kill him in the edit was a good indicator that this is them leaning more into the roots of the Netflix show and less of what they had to deal with in Born Again season 1. And BB was also great. I love her getting to get to the newspaper with Mitchell Ellison and stuff like that at the end. I think that that's gonna be really cool to see her storyline in sort of like a Ben Urich light way going forward into season 3. I think that's gonna be really cool. The cinematography this season still did carry a lot of the grey washed out foggy look that season 1 had. But then we had episode 5 where the cinematography looked identical to the Netflix show. And that did make me appreciate the more foggy look a little bit more, because then it became apparent that no, they're not doing the foggy look just because they don't want to do the Netflix look. They're doing it because they want to separate themselves and because they want to show that this is a new era. You know, they're paying homage to what the show used to look like while committing to a new look and showing that they're not just pretending the Netflix look didn't happen, which is kind of what it felt like season 1 was doing with a lot of this stuff. Just pretending the Netflix era never happened, and this season didn't do that. But yeah, in general, this season was far more what I wanted out of a Daredevil show. It wasn't perfect. There were still quite a few times that I was like, okay, this could use a little bit of an improvement. But in general, it was a big improvement over season 1, and I think that they're only going to improve it better for season 3. Like, this was a genuine attempt to right the wrongs and to prove that they could make a good Daredevil show, and I think that they did. I think they proved with this season that a lot of these characters are in good hands, and that we're getting the full Defenders back next season, which is awesome. And I think the sky's the limit for what they can do next. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again Season 2. If you watched this video, I assume you've seen it. It's over like 3 weeks now at this point. So let me know what your thoughts on it were. Let me know if you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you think it's the same level as Netflix Daredevil yet, or if you think it still has a ways to go. If you liked it a lot more than season 1, if you didn't like it more than season 1, I'd love to know all those thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video and you're not subscribed yet, maybe you could do that, or a like or a share or anything like that. There'll be more Daredevil videos. There's always going to be Daredevil videos as long as they're making stuff for that character. So thank you so much for watching and have an amazing day.